Imagine standing on the east coast of Australia. The waves crash behind you, the sunlight hits the cliffs, and everything feels calm and familiar. But deep beneath your feet is a story almost 300 million years old, a story written in rock, fire, and time, a story of a giant being born. Most people look at the Great Dividing Range and see hills, forests, or rolling plateaus. But the truth is far more incredible. This is not just a line of mountains. This is one of the oldest mountain chains on Earth. Older than the dinosaurs, older than many continents, older than Australia itself. So how did this massive range begin? To understand it, we have to travel back to a time when the world looked nothing like it does today. Back then, huge slabs of the Earth's crust, called tectonic plates, were crashing into each other like slow-moving continents of stone. Each push lifted rock higher and higher. Volcanoes erupted. The land folded and cracked. Over millions of years, all that pressure created a rising backbone across ancient Australia. That backbone would later become the Great Dividing Range. At first, these mountains were sharp, steep, and mighty, more like the Himalayas or Andes than the soft shapes we see today. But time is a powerful sculptor. Wind, rain, fire, and ice slowly carved the peaks down. What remains today is a long chain of worn, ancient highlands, still huge, still powerful, but rounded by millions of years of weather. Even though these mountains look gentle now, they hold the memory of the Earth's wildest forces. Every ridge, every cliff, every deep valley is a reminder that Australia was shaped not by humans, but by geology, by fire, and by time itself. And here's the amazing part. This range doesn't just sit on the land. It shaped the land. It created rivers, forests, and entire climates. It helped decide where towns would rise and how Australia's east coast would look today. This is the true birth story of the Great Dividing Range, a story written over millions of years, and one that still continues even now with every sunrise.
When you look at a mountain range, you might think it only shapes the land. But the Great Dividing Range does something much bigger. It shapes the sky, the weather, and even the seasons across eastern Australia. This mountain chain does not just sit in the landscape. It acts like a giant wall, stretching more than 3,500 kilometers from the top of Queensland all the way down to Victoria and Tasmania. And when you build a wall this long, nature has no choice but to react. Warm, moist air blows in from the Pacific Ocean. When it hits the mountains, it is forced to rise, cool down, and form clouds. Those clouds release rain over the eastern slopes, feeding rainforests, farms, and cities. But on the western side, something very different happens. As the air crosses the mountains, it becomes drier and warmer. This creates a rain shadow, a place where much less rain falls. This Simpty Mountain effect decides which parts of Australia have green forests and which parts become dry plains. The Great Dividing Range literally divides the wet east from the dry inland. It draws the weather lines on the map. In summer, the mountains can supercharge storms, pulling moisture into huge clouds that break into thunder, lightning, and heavy rain. In winter, cold winds slide down the slopes, turning warm valleys into frosty mornings. Even heat waves and bushfire behavior change depending on how air flows over the range. Firefighters watch mountain winds very closely because one change in wind direction can save a town or threaten one. It's strange to think this. A range of old, worn-down mountains still controls the daily life of millions of people. It shapes the rain that fills our dams. It shapes the winds that hit our homes. It shapes the clouds that decide our seasons. The Great Dividing Range is not just a part of Australia, it's a force that guides Australia every single day. When you next see a thunderstorm roll over the east coast, or when a cold wind hits you on a warm day, remember, somewhere far away, the Great Dividing Range is telling the sky what to do.
Water is life, and in Australia, a dry continent where every drop matters, the Great Dividing Range is the starting point of that life. It might look like a line of old mountains, but hidden in its peaks and valleys is one of the most important water systems on Earth. Without this range, many of Australia's rivers, farms, towns, and cities simply would not exist. High in the mountains, the rain that falls doesn't just disappear. It collects in tiny streams, trickles into creeks, and slowly grows into rivers that stretch across the land. Think of it like this. The Great Dividing Range is a giant roof. When it rains, water runs down both sides, east and west, feeding two completely different worlds. On the eastern side, the water flows into the Pacific Ocean and Tasman Sea. These rivers feed towns like Brisbane, Sydney, and Wollongong. On the western side, the water travels hundreds of kilometers inland, building the huge river system known as the Murray-Darling Basin, the food bowl of Australia. Near the middle of the range sits the coldest part, the snowy mountains, where winter blankets the land in thick snow. When spring arrives, that snow melts slowly, sending fresh water down the slopes and into rivers that supply millions of people. This melting snow is so important that it keeps dams full and farms alive even during long, dry summers. It's like Australia's natural water tank, holding and releasing water at just the right time. Some of Australia's most famous rivers begin right here in the Great Dividing Range. The Murray River, the Darling River, the Snowy River, the Brisbane River, and the Murrumbidgee River. These rivers help grow crops, raise livestock, produce electricity, and supply drinking water to millions. And when floods happen, like in Brisbane, Lismore, or the Murray region, the mountains play a major role. They catch rain, guide it, and sometimes send it rushing down faster than expected. Here is a simple truth. If the Great Dividing Range did not exist, neither would most of Australia's major rivers. No water for farms, no water for cities, no snow on the mountains, and no life in many of the places we know today. This ancient range doesn't just divide land, it delivers life itself. Water begins here, rivers begin here, and the story of Australia's survival begins here too.
Deep inside the Great Dividing Range, past the roads, past the towns, and far from noise and lights, there are forests so old they have seen more of Earth's history than humans ever will. These forests were here before the dinosaurs, before flowers existed, and even before Australia had broken away from the supercontinent Gondwana. Walking through them feels like stepping into another time. The Great Dividing Range is home to the Gondwana rainforests, a collection of ancient green worlds found mostly in New South Wales and Queensland. These forests are like giant history books. Every tree, every leaf, every stream tells a story millions of years long. Some of the plants you see here are almost identical to the ones that grew when giant reptiles ruled the earth. One of the most famous residents of these forests is the Antarctic beech. These trees are so old that their ancestors once lived in Antarctica, back when Antarctica was covered in forests, not ice. Then there's the Wellamee pine, a tree thought to be extinct for 2 million years until it was found hidden deep in a secret valley in 1994. Scientists call it a living dinosaur, and it only survives in a few exact locations within the Great Dividing Range. Imagine that, a species older than almost everything you know, still standing tall today. These ancient forests are more than beautiful. They are home to thousands of rare plants and animals, key to clean air, important for water cycles, natural carbon stores that help the climate. Some forests have trees that have seen the world change from ice ages to heat waves, from giant animals to modern humans. They have survived volcanoes, fires, droughts, and storms, and still stand strong. The next time you step into a rainforest along the Great Dividing Range, look around slowly. Listen to the calls of birds, the dripping of water, the rustle of huge old leaves. You are not just walking through a forest. You are walking through millions of years of life. You are standing inside a world that almost every other continent has lost. This is the ancient heart of Australia, a living time machine protected by the mountains that have held it safe for longer than human memory.
The Great Dividing Range is not just made of rock, rivers, and forests. It is alive. It breathes through the animals that move through its valleys, hide in its trees, and glide across its sky. Some of these animals are famous, some are rare, and some exist nowhere else on Earth. Here, the mountains protect life in a way that no other place in Australia can. High in the eucalyptus trees, you'll find one of Australia's most loved animals, the koala. Koalas depend on the cool forests of the range to survive heat, find food, and raise their young. But many koala habitats have shrunk over the years, making the Great Dividing Range one of their last safe homes. Between fires, droughts, and land clearing, koalas need the range more than ever. If you hear strange noises, a camera click, a chainsaw, or even car alarms, you might not be hearing machines. You might be hearing a lyrebird. These birds are incredible mimics. They can copy almost any sound they hear. The Great Dividing Range is one of the few places where these talented birds still thrive. Their calls echo through rainforests like a living soundtrack to the mountains. In the grassy sections of the range, you may see a short, sturdy creature waddling across the ground. This is the wombat, Australia's underground engineer. Wombats dig complex burrow systems that can stretch for meters. These burrows help other animals too, providing shelter during bushfires or storms and creating new spaces for life to grow. Some animals here stay hidden. The eastern quoll and the spotted-tailed quoll are small spotted predators that once lived across most of Australia. Now they survive mainly in forested areas of the Great Dividing Range. They're fast, clever, and play an important role in keeping ecosystems balanced, but they are also threatened by habitat loss and introduced predators. Each sighting of a quoll is a reminder that rare wildlife still survives here, but only just. Up in the snowy mountains, where winter brings ice and snow, lives one of Australia's smallest mammals, the alpine pygmy possum. This tiny animal can fit in your hand, yet it survives some of the harshest weather in the country. It hibernates under snow, eats mountain flowers, and depends on the cool climate found only at high elevations. There are only a few thousand left, and they rely fully on the alpine parts of the Great Dividing Range. From giant birds to tiny possums, from shy quolls to lazy koalas, the Great Dividing Range is a refuge, a place where life found shelter when the rest of the continent became hotter and drier. These animals remind us that the mountains are not empty landscapes. They are busy, breathing, and full of stories. And every creature that lives here helps keep the balance of nature alive.
For at least 65,000 years, long before roads, fences, or towns, the Great Dividing Range was alive with people. People who understood this land better than anyone today ever could.
Every valley, every waterfall, every mountain peak was part of a story, a teaching, a memory. The Great Dividing Range is not just a natural wonder, it is a cultural heartland. Many indigenous nations have deep connections to the range, including the Gundungura, Wiradjuri, Gamilaraay, Darug, Ugambe, KBKB, and many more across Queensland, New South Wales, and Victoria. For them, these mountains were a home, a source of food, a teacher of laws, and a pathway for trade and ceremony. The range was not a barrier, it was a living guide, full of stories passed from one generation to the next. Indigenous peoples saw the mountains as part of the dreaming, a time when ancestral beings shaped the land. Some peaks were sacred, some rivers carried spiritual meaning. Some forests were places of ceremony or learning. Even today, many elders say the range still carries the voices of their ancestors in the wind, the trees, and the flowing creeks. For thousands of years, indigenous peoples used cultural burning to care for the land. These cool, small fires kept the forests healthy, reduced fuel loads, encouraged new plants to grow, and protected animal habitats. This knowledge, known as fire stick farming, helped the Great Dividing Range stay balanced long before modern science existed. Everything changed in the early 1800s. European explorers tried to cross the Blue Mountains, a rugged part of the Great Dividing Range, for years without success. To them, the mountains felt like an unbreakable wall. But in 1813, Blaxland, Lawson, and Wentworth followed ridgelines used by indigenous people and finally made the crossing. This opened the inland to sheep farms, roads, towns, and later gold mining and railways. The range suddenly became a pathway for exploration and expansion. Today, the Great Dividing Range holds two stories. The ancient story of the First Nations people who lived with the land, and the newer story of European settlement that changed the land forever. Both stories shape the mountains we see today. Both have left footprints on the land. Both remind us that the range is more than scenery. It is a place where people and nature have been connected for thousands of generations. When you walk through these mountains, you're not just walking on trails. You're walking on thousands of years of culture, knowledge, and history. And even now, indigenous communities continue to care for these lands, keeping traditions alive, protecting sacred places, and teaching us how to respect the country we all share. The Great Dividing Range is not just old, it is alive with human memory. Most people imagine Australia as hot, dry, and dusty. Red deserts, sunburnt plains, endless heat. But high in the Great Dividing Range, there is a place where the world turns white, a place of snow, ice, and freezing winds. Welcome to the Snowy Mountains, Australia's very own alpine world. In this part of the range stands Mount Kosciuszko, the highest peak on the continent. At 2,228 meters above sea level, it's not the tallest mountain in the world, but what makes it special is everything around it. Glacial lakes, rolling alpine meadows, icy streams, and plants found nowhere else on Earth. Up here, the air is thin, the weather changes in minutes, and the silence feels ancient. During the last ice age, glaciers carved the snowy mountains into the shapes we see today. Sharp ridges were smoothed, deep valleys were carved, and tiny lakes called tarns were formed as ice melted away.
These frozen fingerprints are still visible, silent reminders of a colder Australia. You might think nothing can survive here, but the alpine zone is full of life. It is home to unique species like the alpine pygmy possum, mountain grasshoppers, snow gums twisted by cold winds, and summer blooms of tiny alpine flowers that paint the ground with pink, yellow, and white. These creatures and plants are tough. They have adapted to long winters, icy nights, and short bursts of summer warmth. But they are also fragile. A few degrees of temperature change can decide whether they survive or vanish. During winter, the snowy mountains bring thousands of visitors for skiing, snowboarding, and icy adventures. But the real magic happens when the snow melts. That melting snow turns into water. Fresh, cold water that travels down the mountains and feeds rivers across New South Wales and Victoria. This meltwater is so important that it helps power the Snowy Hydro Scheme, one of Australia's biggest sources of renewable energy and a major water supply for farmers and cities. Up here, snow is not just cold, it is life. But this alpine world is changing. Climate change is shrinking winter snowfalls. Some years, the snow season barely lasts 2 months. Warmer temperatures threaten animals that rely on cold conditions to survive, especially the tiny alpine pygmy possum. If the mountains continue to warm, this creature could disappear forever. The snowy mountains remind us that even the strongest landscapes need protection. The Great Dividing Range holds many faces: rainforests, dry grasslands, rocky escarpments, but the alpine world is its cold, shining crown. It is a place that feels different from the rest of the country, a place touched by frost and shaped by ice, a place where the silence feels sacred. Up here on the roof of Australia, you can see how wide the land is, how old the mountains are, and how deeply the range shapes the entire continent.
The Great Dividing Range has survived volcanoes, ice ages, storms, and millions of years of change. But today, it faces its greatest challenges ever, all happening at the same time. This ancient giant is strong, but it is not invincible. Across the entire 3,500-kilometer stretch, the range is feeling the impact of a warming climate and a growing population. Forests burn more often, snow falls less each year, rivers run lower, animals lose their homes, and landscapes that have survived for millions of years are changing faster than ever before. These pressures are not far away or distant. They are happening right now. The Great Dividing Range is no stranger to fire. Fire has always been part of Australia's natural cycle. But in recent years, fires have grown bigger, hotter, and harder to control. During the Black Summer fires of 2019 to 2020, millions of hectares burned, ancient rainforests that never burned before were damaged, koala populations dropped, and whole mountain ecosystems were pushed to their limits. Some species may need decades to recover. Others may never recover at all. As temperatures rise, many rivers that depend on mountain rainfall are shrinking. Less snow means less meltwater. Longer droughts mean lower river levels. And warmer temperatures stress fish, birds, frogs, and every creature that depends on cool, clean water. The Murray-Darling Basin, which feeds much of Australia's food supply, is especially vulnerable. When the rain struggles, so do the rivers and the people who rely on them. Animals that once filled the range are becoming rare or disappearing completely. Koalas are threatened by habitat loss and heat waves. Quolls are pushed out by cats and foxes. Alpine pygmy possums face extinction as the alpine snow season shrinks. Lyrebirds, wombats, wallabies and gliders lose homes to fires and land clearing. Every species depends on the balance of the mountains, and that balance is shifting. As towns grow and roads expand, animal habitats become chopped into smaller and smaller pieces. Imagine living in a house where every room is sealed off and you can't reach food or family safely. That is what many animals face. Wildlife corridors, safe paths between forests, are now more important than ever. Climate change is not a future problem for the Great Dividing Range. It is happening right now. Experts predict less snow in the snowy mountains, more severe bushfires, hotter summers, longer droughts, more storms and floods, and shrinking habitats for cool climate wildlife. These changes ripple through the whole country because the range controls weather, feeds rivers, and shelters thousands of species. When the mountains suffer, Australia suffers. Across the country, communities, scientists, traditional owners, and conservation groups are fighting to protect the range. They are restoring forests, saving endangered animals, creating wildlife corridors, and practicing cultural burning to reduce dangerous bushfire fuel. These efforts show one important truth: even small actions can help protect a giant. The Great Dividing Range has carried this continent for millions of years. It has shaped the land, the sky, the water, and the life around it. Now, it is our turn to help protect it. Because if we protect the range, we protect our future, and we protect a natural wonder that holds the story of Australia itself.
If you look at a map of Australia, the Great Dividing Range might appear as nothing more than a long wavy line running down the east coast. But when you understand what it does, how it shapes weather, creates rivers, protects forests, feeds towns, and shelters ancient life, that line becomes something far greater. It becomes the heartbeat of a continent. The range controls where rain falls, where rivers begin, and how plants and animals survive. Without it, the east coast would not be as green, many rivers would not exist, and major cities like Brisbane, Sydney, and Canberra would look completely different. The Great Dividing Range decides how the land breathes. Think of everything that depends on this range: fresh water, snow melt, clean air, ancient forests, rare wildlife, farming regions, national parks, and tourism towns. Nearly 80% of Australia's fresh water starts from rain that falls on these mountains. Every drop of water that flows into the Murray-Darling Basin begins as rain on the range. Every river, creek, and waterfall starts from the same source, this long mountain backbone. For Indigenous peoples, these mountains hold stories, teachings, and memories that go back tens of thousands of years. The range is not just a physical place, it is a spiritual one. A place woven into dreaming stories and into the lives of communities who have cared for these lands since ancient times. Many of Australia's most important ecosystems depend on the Great Dividing Range. Rainforests, woodlands, alpine meadows, and coastal catchments. These ecosystems create homes for thousands of species, from famous animals like koalas and kangaroos to tiny creatures found nowhere else on Earth. Without the range, Australia's biodiversity would collapse. In a changing climate, the range becomes even more important. Its forests store carbon, its rivers support farms and cities, its alpine snow feeds hydropower, its ecosystems help control temperature and protect the coast from storms. Protecting the Great Dividing Range means protecting our future, our water, our food, our clean air, and the landscapes that make Australia unique. When you look at the Great Dividing Range with all this knowledge, you realize something powerful. It is not just a mountain chain. It is not just a tourist attraction. It is not just a line on a map. It is a living system, a guardian of the environment, a link to ancient culture, and a foundation for modern life. It matters because without it, Australia would be a very different place.
As the sun rises over Australia's east coast, most people see a warm glow spreading across the land. But if you look a little deeper, you'll see something else. The shadow of a giant, silent and ancient, stretching across the horizon. That giant is the Great Dividing Range. For over 300 million years, these mountains have shaped the continent. They have guided the wind, captured the rain, fed the rivers, and carried forests older than time. They have protected wildlife, held on to snow, and created the landscapes we call home. And in all that time, through storms, fires, droughts, and ice, the range has stood strong, quietly supporting the life around it without ever asking for anything in return. When you drive past these mountains, walk through their forests, or watch clouds drift over their peaks, remember this: you are witnessing history, older than Australia itself. You are standing on land that has shaped people, culture, and nature for tens of thousands of years. The Great Dividing Range is not just scenery. It is a story, written in stone, told through rivers, and carried by the wind. But today, this ancient range needs us. It needs people who care about its forests, its rivers, its animals, and its future. The world is changing, and these mountains feel those changes first. Hotter summers, bigger fires, less snow, and shrinking habitats. We cannot lose something that gives life to so much. The range has protected us for millions of years. Now, it is our turn to protect it. So the next time you see the sun rise across the east coast of Australia, take a moment. Feel the cool air from the peaks. Listen to the rustle of trees. Watch the rivers running toward the sea. All of it, every drop, every leaf, every breeze, is a reminder of how powerful and how precious this mountain chain truly is. The Great Dividing Range is more than a natural wonder. It is the heartbeat of a continent. And as long as we protect it, that heartbeat will keep echoing through every valley, every forest, and every generation that calls Australia home.